Welcome back, dear students and friends. We were discussing a chapter number 2, the biological classification. In this chapter, biological classification, in the previous sessions, we have learned regarding the kingdom fungi. As you know that, based on morphology of mycelium, mode of spore formation, and the type of fruiting bodies, the kingdom fungi is divided into 4 classes. They are phycomycetes, ascomycetes, basidiomycetes, and deuteromycetes. The characteristic of all these 4 classes have been discussed in the previous session. Now today we have to learn regarding the kingdom plantae. So what is a kingdom plantae? What kind of the cells they are present in the kingdom plantae? So if you see the kingdom plantae are eukaryotic organism. Only the kingdom Monera is prokaryotic. The rest all are Protista, fungi, plantae and animalia. All are the eukaryotic organism. Okay. The Protista is unicellular eukaryotic, whereas fungi, that is unicellular or multicellular eukaryotic, and the plantae are mostly a multicellular eukaryotic organism. Now when we discuss the mode of nutrition in the plantae, most of the plants are autotrophic in nature. Why they are autotrophic in nature? Because they possess the chlorophyll. And due to a presence of a chlorophyll, they can prepare their food in presence of sunlight. Hence they are the autotrophic in nature. But there are few examples or there are few exceptional members of a plant which are partially heterotrophic in nature. The examples of partially heterotrophic plants are the insectivorous plants and the second one is parasitic plant. Insectivorous plant, they consume or they get their nutrients from the insects. Like for an example, bladderwort plant and the Venus flytrap plant. These are the insectivorous plant. And the second is parasitic plant. The example is Cuscuta. So they are the partially heterotrophic plants. Okay, so this is the mode of nutrition which you observe in the kingdom plantae. Now, when you see the characteristic of cell wall, so here in the plant, a clear-cut cell wall is observed. And the cell wall of the plant is mainly made up of cellulose. Whereas you know that the fungal cell wall, the cell wall in the fungi, it is made up of chitin and polysaccharide. But the cell wall of a plant, it is made up of a cellulose. And within a plant cell, you can find a prominent presence of a chloroplast. That means a very big, large chloroplast is observed. This chloroplast is observed along with the presence of a large vacuole. So this is a characteristic of the plant cell. When we go about the reproduction, here the plant, they shows alteration of generation. Alteration of generation, that means in the life cycle of a plant, there are two distinct phases. The first one is called as sporophytic phase. The second one is called as gametophytic phase. And this sporophytic and the gametophytic phase that occurs alternatively. So as they occurs alternatively, that means they show or they exhibit alteration of generations. In a plant, the sporophytic phase is a diploid, whereas the gametophytic phase is a haploid. Plant spends its life in both phases, sporophytic and the gametophytic phase. But how much time it spends in the sporophytic phase and the gametophytic phase, that may vary from a plant to a plant. There are different examples of a plant. Like for an example, algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperm, angiosperm. These are the different subcategories of the plant. From all these subcategories, the angiosperm that occurs in the highest proportion in the world. So this is regarding the kingdom called as a plantae. We will learn in detail regarding the kingdom plantae in the chapter number 3. Now we are moving ahead with the last kingdom according to Whittaker, and the last kingdom is kingdom Animalia. This is the last and the fifth kingdom according to an R.H. Whitaker. So, kingdom Animalia, that includes different types of animals. And these Animalia, they are heterotrophic. They are not autotrophic, they are heterotrophic and the eukaryotic organisms. Okay? Even if you specify the mode of nutrition in the heterotrophic, they are specifically holozoic. Holozoic, that means they ingest a food material. Okay? They consume the food material, and that food material is digested within the cavity. Okay? There is an internal cavity, within that it is gets digested. Here they are heterotrophic, that means they depend on the other living organism for their food requirements. Most of the times they are directly or indirectly depends on the plants for their food requirements. Here you know that the food that is consumed by the animals, that is going to be digested within the internal cavity. Like in case of a human, it is digested within a stomach and the intestine. And after a digestion, the excess food that is present, that is stored in the form of glycogen or fat. Remember, the stored form of a sugar in case of an animal is either glycogen or a fat. The primarily that is stored in the form of a glycogen in the liver. Now when we talk about the cell wall of a kingdom Animalia, the Animalia or the animals do not have a cell wall. They are lacking the cell wall. They just have a cell membrane. The cell wall is absent. Animals, they follow the definite growth pattern. And after finishing the definite growth pattern, they achieve a definite shape and the size. There are different kind of the organ systems that develops into a kingdom Animalia. Like the higher forms and the advanced form of animals, they shows elaborate sensory system. They also have a neuromotor mechanisms or neuromotor systems, and many of them, they are also exhibiting the locomotions, means they can move. So this kind of a system, different kind of the system, they exist. The animals, they reproduces mostly sexually. In a fungi, the asexual and sexual reproduction both can be observed. But in animal, they are reproducing with the sexual reproduction. How the sexual reproduction occurs? The sexual reproduction occurs by a copulation of male and female. During a copulation, the male and female gamete, they fuse together and they results into a formation of a zygote. This zygote ultimately develops into an embryo. So this is what you can say, that the development of a embryo or the adult form in the kingdom Animalia. So that's all about the characteristic of kingdom Animalia. This is just a brief overview of a kingdom Animalia. The in detail characteristic of kingdom Animalia and their phylums that we will discuss in the chapter 4. In chapter 3 we will learn regarding the kingdom Plantae, whole kingdom Plantae, and in chapter 4 we will learn regarding the kingdom Animalia. So these all are the 5 kingdoms of R.H. Whitaker. Kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae, and the kingdom Animalia. Now we are moving ahead with a certain living, should I call it as living or non-living? That is again a question mark. But they are called as viruses and the viroids. Let us first discuss with the viruses. As I have told you that they are non-cellular organism. As they are non-cellular, should we call it as living or non-living? Because all the living organisms, they are made up of a cell. But these are the viruses which are not made up of a cell. That's why they are non-cellular. But why we are learning in this chapter? Because these viruses are such that sometimes they are behaving as a living and sometimes they are behaving as a non-living. So that's why we have to learn it. Again, it is a question mark whether we have to consider it as a living or the non-living, because they are the non-cellular organism. And according to a rule of biology, the living organism should possess the cell, but here the cells are absent. When you see the structure of these viruses, the viruses have an inert crystalline structure, okay, and they are, when they are living outside of a cell, they have an inert crystalline structure. But once they come in the contact with a cell, they infect a cell, they utilize or take over the machinery of the host cell, they replicate within them, that means they multiply within them, and they kill the host cell, and thus the host cell gets damaged. The discovery of the viruses have been done by the different scientists. We will focus the discovery of the four main scientists in the virus science, or you can say a virology. The first discovery that was done by a Pasteur. The Pasteur has identified this non-cellular organism and he gave the name them as virus. The virus first name was given by the Pasteur. The meaning of virus is it is venom or the poisonous fluid. That means it is very toxic. Why we are giving such a name? Because they are utilizing the machinery of the host cell and kill them. So that's why the Pasteur has given the name virus. So the contribution of Pasteur, he gave the name viruses to this non-cellular organism. Now the second scientist, it is called as Ivanonsky. The Ivanonsky has recognized that there are few microbes which are causing a disease to a tobacco. And we are calling this disease as tobacco mosaic disease. When he found that the organisms which are causing a disease to a tobacco, they are even smaller than the bacteria. That means it wants to say that the viruses are even smaller than bacteria and they can also pass through a bacteria proof filter. Okay, the bacteria proof filter, they retain the bacteria, do not allow a pass of bacteria, but they do not stop the passage of a viruses, they allow, because the viruses are even smaller than the bacteria. So that you have to remember that viruses are smaller than bacteria. Okay, so again repeat the contribution of first two. The Pasteur has given a name virus to a non-cellular organism. Virus, that means a venom or poisonous fluid. Ivanonsky has found that there are few living organisms which are causing a disease to a plant and even they are smaller than the viruses. Now the third scientist, M. W. Bijernik, he demonstrated that when the extract of infected tobacco plant, means the plant which is infected with a tobacco mosaic virus, when it comes in the contact with a healthy plant, the healthy plant also gets infected. So here the fluid of infected plant, when it comes in the contact with a healthy plant, that pass the infection, and that fluid, he gave it name as a contagium vivil fluidum. Contagium vivil fluidum. This is the name that is given by a Bijernik. Okay, the contagium vivum fluidum, that means infectious living fluid. Now the fourth scientist who has contributed is a W. M. Stanley. And the W. M. Stanley showed that the viruses could be crystallized. And these crystals are made up of proteins. The ultimate point of a Stanley is that they are made up of proteins. But as the science advances, later on we found that the viruses are not only made up of a protein, they are also made up of nucleic acids. And hence we are calling it as virus is nucleoprotein. Virus is a nucleoprotein, that means it is made up of nucleic acid and the protein. And you have learned the chemistry of nucleic acid and the protein in the chapter number 9. See, these viruses, they are inert outside, means not doing anything or not doing any harm. They are inert outside. But when they infect a host, they have a capacity to kill the host. You also have to remember one thing, that the viruses are the obligate parasites. They depends on the other for their requirements. They cannot prepare their food, they cannot consume their food. So that's why they are called as an obligate parasites. Now one thing is clear, that Viruses are the nucleoprotein. Means they are made up of nucleic acids and the proteins. So which kind of the nucleic acids we found in these viruses? So the viruses which infect the plants, they have single-stranded RNA. Remember, the viruses which can infect a plant have a single-stranded RNA. But the viruses which can infect the animals that have either single or double-stranded RNA or the double-stranded DNA. In short, it wants to say that here the nucleic acid is present as a genetic material, and the nucleic acid that is present in the viruses could be either RNA or the DNA. Okay, when you go in a specific way, then the nucleic acids of the viruses that infect a plant has a single-stranded RNA, but the nucleic acids of the animals which infect the animals, they have an either single or double-stranded RNA or the double-stranded DNA. Now the another kind of a virus is a bacteriophage. I have already told you that the viruses are smaller than bacteria. That means it can also go in the body of a bacteria, and that can also infect a bacteria. So those viruses which can infect a bacteria, they are called bacteriophages. And the bacteriophages means a viruses which infect the bacteria, they have a double-stranded DNA as a genetic material or as a nucleic acid. So that is what different kind of the nucleic acid that exist in the viruses. Apart from nucleic acid, the viruses also possess the protein. And this protein that is serving as a protective coat. And the name of a protein that is present in the virus is a capsid. The capsid is made up of a different subunits, made up of a small subunits, and these subunits are called as capsomeres. These capsomeres, they are arranged in a specific fashions, like they are arranged in the helical way or they are arranged in the polyhedral geometric form. And the function of this capsomeres, which ultimately form a capsid, is to protect the nucleic acid which is present inside. Because the nucleic acid has all the informations to carry over into a host cell or to synthesize the or to replicate the virus cells. So this is regarding the viruses. Okay, that means they are made up of nucleic acids and the proteins. Next, similarly, the viruses like other non-cellular organisms are also present, which were discovered by the Theo Diner. The Theo Diner has discovered another non-cellular organism. He gave it name as a viroids. They are not viruses, they are called as viroids. So what are the viroids? The basic characteristic of a viroids, they are smaller than viruses. Viruses are smaller than bacteria, and the viroids are even smaller than the viruses. Here the genetic material in the viroid you can find is the RNA. RNA is the genetic material. And the protective protein coat, that is a capsid, is absent in the viroids. So if you compare the viruses and the viroids, I am telling you the difference between the viruses and the viroids. Viruses are larger than viroids, or you can say viroids are the smaller than the viruses. Now the second difference, in the virus the genetic material is either RNA or the DNA, whereas in the viroids the genetic material is RNA. The third difference is that in viruses the protein, capsid protein is present. In the viroids the capsid protein is absent. And the fourth difference, there are various diseases is caused by viruses like tobacco mosaic disease, or you can say Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so these are the diseases caused by viruses. But another disease that is caused by viroids, I will tell you the name of disease which is caused by viroid. It is potato spindle tuber disease. Okay, so this is a disease which is caused by viroids. So that's all about the non-cellular organism, viruses and the viroids. Still we have a confusion. Shall we consider these viruses and viroids as a living or a non-living? That is again a question mark. So that's all about the viruses and the viroids. A short note regarding the viruses and the viroids are important. Even the difference between the viruses and the viroids is also important. Now we move ahead with the last topic of this chapter, and this is called as a lichen. So what is a lichen? Lichen is a symbiotic association between the algae and the fungi. A symbiotic relationship between the algae and the fungi. You know that algae and fungi, they are the two separate living organisms. When a symbiotic relationship exists between the algae and fungi, then it is called as lichens. What do you mean by symbiotic relationship? Symbiotic relationship, that means when two living organisms, they are living together, when they are living together, both have a mutual benefits. Both gets benefited when they are living together. This kind of relationship is called as symbiotic relationship. You might have seen in the farms, there is a white color bird which is sitting on the buffalo. Why the buffalo allows to sit this white color bird on its body? The reason is that the white color bird that eats the insects which is present in the body of a buffalo. So the body of a buffalo gets cleaned, and the bird eats insects, so the bird gets a food. So ultimately when they are living together, both have a benefit. Such kind of a relationship is called as symbiotic relationship. And this kind of a relationship which exists, when it exists between an algae and the fungi, then it is called as lichens. Here there are two living organisms. One is an algae and the second one is fungi. The algal component in the lichen is called as phycobiont. Remember, the algal component of lichen is called phycobiont, whereas the fungal component of a lichen is called as mycobiont. It's called as a mycobiont. Clear? I again repeat, the algal component is called as phycobiont and the fungal component is called as mycobiont. From this phycobiont and the mycobiont, the phycobiont is autotrophic, means can prepare the food, and the mycobiont is a heterotrophic. How? Now we will see that how both the living organisms, when they are living together, how they benefit each other. See, now you know that the algae is a autotrophic. The algae is a autotrophic. Hence it can prepare the food. It can prepare the food for itself as well as for the fungi. In return, the fungi, they provide the shelter and they provide the minerals, because the minerals are necessary for the photosynthesis. So the fungi will provide the shelter, a home for algae. It provides the minerals, it provides the water to a algae. In return, the algae provides a ready-made food. And thus, a symbiotic relationship exists between the lichens, between an algae and the fungi. One important MCQ which can be asked, the lichens are the very good indicators of pollution indicators. So it is a very good indicator of pollutions because the lichen do not grow in polluted areas. So if there is a pollution, the lichen do not grow. That indicates there is a pollution. And if there is no pollution or very minimal pollution, the lichen can easily grow up. So this is an indication of pollution. So this MCQ to remember. So here we are finishing with a chapter number 2, the biological classification. Student, it is an important chapter. So learn it, keep learning, keep watching, like and subscribe this channel. Thank you for watching.